Is the Biblical Ark of the Covenant hidden in an Ethiopian church? Researchers claim Ark hidden for 3,000 years in Ethiopia. Where is the Ark of the Covenant, the vessel that, according to Jewish tradition and the Bible, safeguarded the tablets of the covenant? The gold-coated ark adorned with a gold wreath once resided in the first temple until the Babylonian army's destruction in 587 BC. While records don't mention its fate, it's improbable that such a sacred and precious object disappeared unnoticed. So, did it survive the destruction? And if so, where does it rest today? The Ark, also known as the Ark of God or the Ark of the Testimony, was positioned within the Holy of Holies in the First Temple. It held immense significance, described as the primary seat of the Shekinah, and it hasn't been seen since the First Temple's ruin. Sages hold two opinions on its whereabouts. Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shimon believe the Ark was taken to Babylon and destroyed, while Rabbi Yehuda claims it remained in the temple's confines but was later relocated and rediscovered elsewhere. The Ark of the Covenant's location remains a mystery that scholars, adventurers, rabbis, and enthusiasts have sought for over 2,000 years. A peculiarly shaped stone unearthed years ago in the ruins of an ancient temple near Jerusalem raises the possibility that it may be the great stone upon which the Ark of the Covenant rested, housing the sacred tablets of the covenant. On the other hand, a substantial number of Bible scholars propose that the Ark's final resting place is a church in Ethiopia. They assert that it was clandestinely transported there from Israel during the reign of King Manasseh of Judah, 697 BC to 642 BC, and it has remained hidden there for 3,000 years. A report by Fox News suggests that the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Aksum houses one of the world's most coveted biblical relics, including the Ten Commandments and Aaron's Staff of Miracles. Numerous Torah scholars are convinced that the Ark of the Covenant was covertly transported from its original resting place beneath the Temple Mount all the way to Africa, carried by Jews expelled from Israel during Manasseh's rule. Since its disappearance, multiple theories about its location have surfaced, including submersion in the Sea of Galilee, concealment beneath the Temple Mount's foundation, surrender to the Americans, and the increasingly supported claim of its presence in Ethiopia. According to the Bible, the Israelites crafted the Ark of the Covenant in the Sinai Desert after leaving Egypt. Its vanishing coincided with the Babylonian conquest of Jerusalem in 587 BC. One account narrates how the Jordan River stood still as priests carrying the Ark crossed it, while other stories describe its role in battles where its mystical powers aided the Israelites. When captured by the Philistines, the Ark's presence caused outbreaks of tumors and diseases, compelling them to return it to the Israelites. Some tales even mention death befalling anyone who touched or gazed upon the Ark. As mentioned earlier, certain researchers propose that the Ark of the Covenant traveled extensively before ultimately reaching ancient Israel. According to the Maccabees, it was concealed in a cave on Mount Nebo by the prophet Jeremiah. In Hasmoneans 2, it is recounted how Jeremiah discovered a hidden cave on the mountain and buried the Ark of the Covenant, admonishing exiles not to mark its location until God reunites his people from exile and returns them to their homeland. Another narrative, currently gaining credence, asserts that the Ark of the Covenant found its way to Ethiopia and now resides in the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion. According to this belief, Ethiopian Orthodox Christians transported it to Aksum through Menelik, the son of the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon of Israel, after Jerusalem's fall in 586-587 BC and the destruction of Solomon's temple. Britons also claim the Ark's possession, with one theory proposing that the Knights Templar, also known as the Order of the Knights of Solomon's Temple, discovered it in Jebel al-Madba in Petra, potentially the biblical Mount Sinai. Some legends suggest the Templars hid the Ark of the Covenant in Ethiopia, while another theory suggests British Baron Ralph de Soudley, known for generous religious donations, transported it to his estate at Temple, Hardwick.
Kebra is Ethiopia's national epic, and it's a tale of mystery and intrigue. It fills in the gap left by the Old Testament, telling us where the Ark went to.
The story begins with the Queen of Sheba, now modern-day Ethiopia, who lived in the 10th century BC. Hearing of Solomon's great wisdom, she visited him in Jerusalem.
The Queen of Sheba and Solomon clearly hit it off well, because about 9 months after her return from Jerusalem, she bears a son whose name is Menelik, becomes the first king of Ethiopia.
Years later, Menelik goes to visit his father Solomon. On his return, Solomon sends some Jewish priests to accompany Menelik to Ethiopia. These men steal the Ark from the temple, smuggling it out of Israel. By the time Menelik discovers what they've done, it's too late.
Century BCE. The Exodus is one of the most famous stories ever told. Moses and the Israelites survive a plague that takes the firstborn sons of the land. Moses leads the Israelites out of the land of Egypt, and they move across the Red Sea, where the waters miraculously part when he holds up his magical staff.
They arrive at a mountain in which God gives them the 10 Commandments. The Israelites build a holy vessel, a sacred box, to hold these tablets of the commandments. It's called the Ark of the Covenant.
The Bible gives a very clear description as to what the Ark of the Covenant looks like. God himself is, in fact, the architect of this, and so is very precise about the measurements and the way that it has to be built.
It's made of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high, or about 52 inches long, 31 inches wide, 31 inches high. It's covered entirely in gold, inside and out. It has 4 gold rings on which poles are attached for it to be carried. Finally, it's topped off with an ornate gold lid that has 2 sculptures of cherubim on top.
According to the Old Testament, the Israelites carry the ark for 40 years, wandering through the desert. Along the way, it displays great power. Eventually, the ark is brought to Jerusalem, where King Solomon builds the first Jewish temple at a place called the Temple Mount. He houses the ark inside within a special room called the Holy of Holies.
The temple is completed by around 950 BCE, and for 4 centuries, the ark in the temple becomes the center, the sort of thrumming heart of the kingdom of Israel.
The Ark of the Covenant was the focal point of religious devotion, the place where God spoke to the world.
Then, war breaks out in 587 BC.
The Babylonians attack Jerusalem and finally destroy the city after a 30-month siege. And the Babylonians are absolutely brutal.
They tear down the temple.
They also set Jerusalem on fire, and everything burns, including, perhaps, the ark.
So a large amount of historians believe that the Ark of the Covenant was in Jerusalem up to 587 BC. After that, it's almost entirely absent from the biblical text.
Over the years, theories have placed the powerful Ark of the Covenant everywhere from Ethiopia to Ireland. But historians remain skeptical that it could have traveled so far from Jerusalem.
If the ark existed and survives, it's probably somewhere in the Middle East. With the Babylonians closing in around the destruction of the temple, the Jews would not have had very much time, and so the best thing to do would just have been to hide it.
It's not like they can take it on a long voyage. They would have probably had to carry it on foot. It probably didn't travel very far. So you're definitely left with a limited radius in which to look.
The idea that the Ark of the Covenant exists in Ethiopia.
That's what brought me into this field.
Before
that, I wrote all about current affairs.
That story is so nuts, and it sounds so ridiculous, and people, you go, what? The Ark of the Covenant's real? But then when you go into the history of these people that lived there, and they all suffered radiation poisoning, and it's like, wait a minute.
Cataracts over their eyes.
Yeah.
And let's not forget that there's an indigenous population of Old Testament Jews in Ethiopia, the Falashas, who have their own story about how the Ark of the Covenant got there.
Right.
Different from the Ethiopian national epic, which is called the Kebra Nagast, the glory of kings. That's why I got into this field. I was a current affairs guy, and Ethiopia was on my beat, and I just kept on coming across this story, and I realized it was central to Ethiopian culture, and I decided to investigate it and explore it, and it led to The Sign and the Seal, which was published in 1992, and that's what set me on the path to Fingerprints of the Gods and everything that followed that.
So who is getting the cataracts?
The guardian of the Ark. This is a monk who is appointed. The place is Aksum in the province of Tigray in northern Ethiopia. It's a massive massively interesting place. Aksum has these huge granite stelae. They're very similar in many ways to ancient Egyptian obelisks. They're a bit different in shape, but same sort of height, some of them going 110 feet high, cut out of solid granite, right up there in the highlands of Ethiopia. And then they have an ancient church, the Church of St. Mary, a cathedral actually of St. Mary of Zion, where the Ark apparently was kept for hundreds and hundreds of years. Before that it was kept elsewhere, and then now it's been moved into a chapel that stands next to St. Mary of Zion Cathedral. And that chapel is guarded by armed men. The whole town is an armed camp that is protecting what they believe to be the Ark of the Covenant, but it's guarded particularly by one guy who is the official guardian of the Ark, and he's elected by other monks to be the guardian of the Ark, and several of them have run away when they get that election, because once you're elected as the guardian of the Ark, when the previous one has died, you're going to be kept in that chapel forever. You'll never be allowed to leave it. So they're close to whatever this object is. They're close to it. And I met 3 of them over a succession of years, because their mortality is once they're appointed, they die very soon. And they all had these cataracts over their eyes, and they all blamed the object in that chapel, whether or not it's the Ark, for causing their blindness.
Wow.
So it's
and no one is going in there and trying to get to the bottom of it. They won't let you.
They won't let you. They won't let you. And
can you bribe them?
No.
It seems like someone should go look.
Yeah.
What the hell is that?
Yeah. No.
What's in there? I mean, if we really find out the Ark of the Covenant was an actual object.
I think it was an actual object.
And you think it was some nuclear something or another? Like,
I don't know what it was. I think it's what is rightly described as an out-of-place artifact, because if you look at the description in the book of Exodus, the very precise dimensions of it, I think in modern terms we'd say 3 feet 9 inches long by 2 feet 3 inches high and wide. It's got a layer of gold, it's got a layer of wood, it's got another layer of gold. It's very precisely specified, like a blueprint in the book of Exodus. And then it does all this stuff. It shoots out jets of fire and kills completely innocent people. It kills 50,000 Philistines in the city of Ashdod when they briefly capture it from the Israelites and make the mistake of treating it like a tourist object. And they open the Ark of the Covenant and look inside, and suddenly everybody in that city is dying. And what they're dying of is cancerous tumors. This is described in the Old Testament. So it's intriguing that this object is so precisely specified and is reported to have done these terrible things.
It's just insane that we know where it is.
Well, we know that I believe Ethiopia has a very strong claim to it, but that's all I can say because I've not seen it myself. I've been right outside the door of that sanctuary chapel several times. But
did you bring a Geiger counter?
No. That would be a good thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine it was going nuts as you got close.
That would be a good thought.
I mean, it's not like it's going to be, if it's radioactive, it's not like it's going to be contained just this one small area. You're going to have traces of it that leak out.
That's true. It would be a good way
especially if people are getting cataracts from being in the room with it.
Yeah.
And so 3 different people you talk to have cataracts from that.
Yeah, and they all blame the Ark. And one of them, it's a resonant phrase, which sticks in my memory. I asked him why, and he said the Ark is a thing of fire. Just that.
Did he describe it to you?
He did describe it as a box, rather like the biblical description, unsurprisingly. But
did he describe what it looked like the outside of it?
Gold.
Gold.
Mm-hmm. Gold.
Wow.
And of course, gold is a very good insulator against radiation. I don't want to go too far down this track. To me, the fascinating thing is that Ethiopia is the only country in the world that actually claims to have the Ark of the Covenant. That is central to religion and culture in Ethiopia today. That there's much to support that argument, particularly in the form of the Falashas, the Ethiopian Jews, and their very ancient traditions about how they got to Ethiopia in the first place. In context of all of that, I think Ethiopia has a very good claim, very interesting claim, and that's why I wrote a book about it.
That one to me is just like, we know where it is.
Yeah.
That one to me is so crazy that someone is keeping that information from the rest of the humans.
Yeah.
Because if we found out the Ark of the Covenant was in fact a real object and we know where it is and it does match the description in the Bible, that kind of changes everything. Now all of a sudden the Bible is not just stories and myths. The Bible is some sort of a historical record.
Yeah. Well, let's not forget that one of the world's best-known flood myths also comes from the Bible, which is the flood of Noah, which again is part of this worldwide tradition of which I am absolutely convinced Atlantis should be understood as a part of that worldwide tradition of a global flood and the loss of a former civilization. And again, it's one of the reasons why I've done the work I've done over these years.